My wife Catherine stood at the foot of our stairs at 2:30 in the morning, with 3 suitcases packed, and my brother James right behind her. And she looked at me with those blue eyes that I'd loved for 11 years and said the words that would burn themselves into my soul forever. "I'm leaving Thomas, and James is coming with me." We emptied the savings account, all $106,000 of it, because frankly I deserve a life, and I'm not going to waste what's left of my youth watching a 7-year-old kid slowly die from leukemia when I could be actually living. And James, my older brother, who I'd worshipped since childhood, who taught me to fish and helped me get through college, stood there with his hand possessively on Catherine's lower back like he owned her, and he had the audacity to look me in the eye and say, "No hard feelings, little brother, but you gotta understand, life's too short to be stuck in this kind of nightmare situation. You'll figure something out. You always do." And then they were gone into the November darkness, while our son Oliver lay sleeping upstairs in the hospital bed we'd set up in what used to be the guest room, his small 7-year-old body ravaged by acute lymphoblastic leukemia that was destroying him from the inside out, and everyone in my life, my parents, my co-workers, Catherine's entire family, our friends, everyone told me I would completely shatter under the weight of what was coming, that no single man could possibly survive the combination of devastating betrayal, financial ruin, and watching his only child fight for life. But they were wrong about me, dead wrong, because I didn't shatter even though I bent so far I thought I'd snap. And when you bend that far without breaking, you develop a kind of strength that people who've never been tested can't even imagine. And that strength carried my son and me through 10 years of absolute hell. And when Catherine and James finally came crawling back with empty bank accounts and desperate smiles thinking they could just waltz back into our lives now that we'd succeeded beyond their wildest nightmares, my son Oliver made them pay for every single moment of abandonment in ways that were so perfectly calculated and brutally satisfying that even I was impressed by his ruthlessness. My name is Thomas Brennan. I'm 44 years old, and this is the story of how my son and I survived abandonment and then orchestrated the most methodical revenge I've ever witnessed. The morning after Catherine and James left, I woke up on the couch in the living room with sunlight streaming through the windows and my phone buzzing insistently on the coffee table. My entire body ached from sleeping in an awkward position. My eyes felt like sandpaper from crying, and my chest felt like someone had reached in and physically removed my heart. The phone screen showed my mother's name. "Thomas," she said when I answered, her voice carrying that particular tone of disappointment she'd perfected over my 34 years of life. "Your father and I heard about Catherine leaving. We need to discuss Oliver's situation." "His situation is that he has cancer, and we're treating it," I said, my voice hoarse from disuse and emotion. "Thomas, be realistic for once in your life. The treatment costs are absolutely astronomical. Catherine took all the money. You don't have the financial resources to continue this level of care. Your father and I have discussed this extensively, and we believe you need to seriously consider hospice care." "Hospice?" I sat up, instantly awake despite the exhaustion. "Mom, he's 7 years old. His doctors say he has a 58% survival rate with aggressive treatment. 58% means that 42% of children die anyway despite bankrupting their families. And with Catherine gone and the money stolen, you simply cannot afford to continue treatment. Thomas, we think it would be kinder to everyone, especially Oliver, if you accepted the reality of the situation and focused on making his remaining time as comfortable as possible rather than prolonging his suffering." The words hit me like physical blows. My own mother was suggesting I should let my son die because saving him would be too expensive. "I'm not giving up on him," I said firmly. "You're being selfish and irrational. You're going to destroy yourself financially and emotionally, and in the end, Oliver will probably die anyway. That's not love, Thomas. That's ego and denial." I hung up without saying goodbye. My hands were shaking. My own parents, the people who were supposed to support me unconditionally, had just told me to let my child die. I heard movement upstairs and climbed the steps to Oliver's room. He was awake, sitting up in the hospital bed we'd rented, his small face pale and thin, his head completely bald from the chemotherapy. He'd lost 23 pounds in the past 4 months, dropping from a healthy 60 pounds to a skeletal 37. But his eyes were bright and alert, and when he saw me, he smiled. "Morning, Dad." "Morning, buddy. How are you feeling?" "Okay. Tired. Where's Mom?" This was the question I'd been dreading all night. How do you tell a 7-year-old child who's fighting for his life that his mother abandoned him because she didn't want to watch him suffer? How do you explain that kind of betrayal to someone who still believes the world is fundamentally good? "She had to go away," I said, sitting on the edge of his bed. "For how long?" I looked at my son and made a decision that would shape everything that followed. Complete honesty, no matter how much it hurt. Oliver was facing the end. He deserved truth. "She's not coming back, Oliver." His face didn't change expression, but his eyes filled with tears. "Because I'm sick? Because she wasn't strong enough to stay. Some people run away when things get hard. Your mom is one of those people." "Uncle James left too?" "Yes." "Together?" "Yes." He processed this information with a maturity that no 7-year-old should have to possess. "Are you going to leave?" "Never. Not ever. You and me, we're a team. We're going to fight this cancer, and we're going to win." "What if we don't win?" "Then we'll fight anyway, because fighting is what we do. But Oliver, I need you to understand something important. I'm not going anywhere. Your mom and Uncle James chose to leave. I'm choosing to stay. That's what real family does. Promise?" "I promise." That morning, I made a series of phone calls that would define the next decade of my life. First, I called my supervisor at Mitchell & Associates, the accounting firm where I'd worked for 9 years as a senior accountant, making $78,000 a year. "Gary, I need to quit effective immediately," I told him. "Thomas, I heard about Catherine. I'm so sorry, but don't make rash decisions." "It's not rash. Oliver's treatment schedule is unpredictable. I need to be available 24/7. I can't maintain office hours." "We can work something out, flexibility. I appreciate that, but I need to freelance from home. I need complete control over my schedule." "If you're sure." "I'm sure." Next, I called 5 clients I'd done side work for over the years and told them I was available full-time for freelance accounting and bookkeeping. All 5 said yes immediately. I'd built a reputation for reliability and accuracy, and they were happy to hire me. Then I called my bank and got the full damage report. Catherine had cleaned out our joint savings account, $106,000 that I'd accumulated over 12 years of marriage. She'd also maxed out both of our credit cards to the tune of $52,000. The charges were all luxury items, first-class plane tickets to somewhere tropical, reservations at 5-star resorts, shopping sprees at high-end stores. I was legally responsible for the entire amount. After the bank, I called Oliver's oncologist, Dr. Patricia Summers, a woman in her 50s who'd been treating Oliver for 4 months. "Dr. Summers, I need to understand the full cost of Oliver's treatment moving forward." "Thomas, I heard about Catherine. I'm so sorry. I need numbers, not sympathy." She was quiet for a moment, then, "Approximately $16,000 per month for the next 18 to 24 months. That includes chemotherapy, radiation, medications, regular scans, and emergency care when his immune system crashes. Insurance will cover about 60%. So $6,400 per month out of pocket." "Approximately, yes. Thomas, there are programs. I'll figure it out. He's going to get the treatment. That's non-negotiable." "I admire your determination, but you need to be realistic about your financial situation. Everyone keeps telling me to be realistic. You know what's realistic? My son wants to live. He's fighting every single day to survive. The least I can do is make sure he has the resources to fight. I'll find the money. I hung up and did the math on a piece of paper. Oliver's treatment would cost approximately $115,000 to $154,000 over the next 2 years. I had $106,000 stolen, $52,000 in credit card debt I didn't create, and about $9,000 in my personal checking account. The numbers didn't work. They didn't even remotely work. I was starting at negative $43,000 and needed to find at least $160,000 more. But I'd promised Oliver we'd fight, so I'd find a way to make the numbers work. That first week was pure survival mode. I worked from midnight to 7 in the morning on freelance projects while Oliver slept from 7 to 10 while the home health nurse was there, then spent the rest of the day managing Oliver's care, medications, meals, hygiene, entertainment, doctor appointments. I existed on 4 hours of sleep per night and coffee, lost 12 pounds in the first 2 weeks from forgetting to eat, developed tremors in my hands from exhaustion and stress. But Oliver was stable, and that was all that mattered. My parents called again on day 8, my father this time. "Son, your mother and I think you're making a terrible mistake. You're destroying yourself trying to save a child who probably can't be saved. That's not noble. It's delusional. He has a 58% survival rate, which means almost half of kids in his situation die. And you're going to bankrupt yourself for a coin flip? That's not rational thinking. Rational thinking is supporting my son's fight to live. You're being selfish, Thomas. You're prolonging his suffering because you can't accept reality. The humane thing would be to let him go peacefully. If you're not going to help, don't call again. We're not giving you money to throw away on a hopeless situation." I hung up. My parents called twice more that month. I didn't answer. They sent one email suggesting I was being emotionally abusive to Oliver by forcing him through treatment. I blocked their email addresses. Catherine's parents called once. Her mother, Linda, was crying. "Thomas, we're so sorry about what Catherine did. She's always been fragile emotionally, and Oliver's diagnosis just broke something in her. She couldn't handle it. So she stole our life savings and ran away with my brother. That's not fragility, that's calculated betrayal. We gave her $30,000 to help her and James get settled," Linda said. "We thought you gave her $30,000? My voice rose despite my attempts to stay calm. "You gave the woman who abandoned her dying child money to help her start a new life? She's our daughter, and Oliver is your grandson. Where's his $30,000? Where's the support for the child actually suffering?" Linda was silent. Catherine's father, Robert, took the phone. "We think you're being unreasonably bitter about this, Thomas. Marriages end, people move on. You need to accept that and stop vilifying Catherine. People move on after divorce negotiations and custody agreements, not by stealing everything and disappearing in the middle of the night while their kid fights cancer. And frankly, if you think what she did is acceptable, you're as broken as she is." I hung up and added them to my blocked contacts list. The medical bills started arriving in earnest. $16,000 for Oliver's first full month of treatment, $15,000 for the second month, $19,000 for the third month when he had complications and needed 5 days in the hospital. I filed for divorce. Catherine didn't respond to the papers. The process took 6 months because I had to prove I'd made reasonable attempts to notify her, but she was completely off the grid. Eventually, the judge granted the divorce by default, awarded me sole custody, and hit Catherine with the maximum child support obligation, $2,100 per month. I never received a single payment. Catherine and James had vanished completely. I started selling everything. Our house was the biggest asset. We'd bought it 8 years ago for $315,000. I sold it for $420,000, which sounds good until you subtract the remaining mortgage balance, realtor fees, and closing costs. I walked away with $97,000. I sold Catherine's jewelry. Her engagement ring, 2-carat diamond white gold setting, got me $14,000 at an estate jewelry store. Her wedding ring got me $4,000. The diamond earrings I'd bought for our 10th anniversary got me $6,000. The pearl necklace that had been her grandmother's got me $8,000. I sold my car, a 3-year-old Honda Accord I'd just finished paying off, for $11,000. Bought a 15-year-old Toyota Camry with 183,000 miles for $2,000. I sold my watch collection, not expensive watches, but nice ones I'd collected over the years. Got $3,200 total. I sold our furniture, our decent TV, Catherine's designer clothes she'd left behind, her shoes, her handbags. Anything that could be converted to cash got converted. 6 months after Catherine left, I moved Oliver and myself into a 2-bedroom apartment near the hospital. The rent was $1,100 per month, which seemed like a fortune when I was used to a $1,700 mortgage payment, but was actually cheap for the area. The apartment was small, outdated, and in a neighborhood that was transitioning from okay to questionable, but it was close to the hospital, and that mattered more than aesthetics. 8 months after Catherine left, I hired a private investigator. His name was Frank Morrison, a retired police detective who now ran a small firm specializing in locating people who didn't want to be found. I paid him $2,500 I should have spent on groceries and debt payments. Frank found them in 3 weeks. Costa Rica, living in a rented beach house in Tamarindo that cost $5,000 per month. Their social media accounts, which they apparently hadn't bothered making private, showed pictures of surfing, sunset dinners, cocktails by the pool, yoga on the beach. Catherine had posted a photo of herself in a bikini with the caption, "Living my best life finally." James had posted one of them together at a fancy restaurant with the caption, "Paradise found with my soulmate." Neither of them mentioned Oliver, not once in 8 months of posts. It was like he'd never existed. Frank's report included financial analysis based on public records and social media evidence. James had told people he was taking time away from corporate life to focus on self-discovery. Catherine had told people she'd escaped a toxic marriage that was suffocating her. Neither had jobs. They were living entirely on the $106,000 they'd stolen, burning through it at approximately $8,000 per month. I did the math. At that rate, they'd be broke in approximately 13 months, maybe 16 if they started being more careful. Frank's report also included screenshots of Catherine's posts in which she'd talked about finally being free and not being held back by other people's problems anymore. In one post, she'd written, "Sometimes you have to choose yourself, even when it feels selfish. I spent 7 years watching my life shrink around someone else's crisis, and I finally said enough. I deserve happiness too." I read that and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not rage. Rage was too hot, too immediate. This was something colder and more patient. Catherine thought she'd escaped. She thought abandoning her dying child was an act of self-love. She thought she deserved happiness at the expense of Oliver's life. She was wrong, and someday she'd understand exactly how wrong she was. But first, Oliver had to survive. Oliver survived year 1 of treatment. Then year 2. The cancer went into remission at the end of year 2, and Dr. Summers cautiously declared him cured. We continued monitoring for 3 more years, scans every 3 months, then every 6 months, then annually. By year 5, Dr. Summers declared Oliver completely cured with less than 5% chance of recurrence. Those 5 years aged me 20 years. I went completely gray by 36, developed chronic stress-induced gastritis that required daily medication by 37, lost 42 pounds I couldn't afford to lose, dropped from 180 to 138 because I was spending money on Oliver's food, not mine. Developed insomnia that persisted even after the worst of the treatment was over. But Oliver survived. He thrived, actually. His hair grew back thick and dark like Catherine's. His color returned. His energy came back. The port in his chest was removed when he was 10, leaving just a small scar that you'd never notice unless you knew to look for it. By the time Oliver was 12, you couldn't tell he'd ever been sick. He was normal height for his age, maybe even a bit tall. Played video games, read constantly, made a few close friends at school. He was quiet, more serious than most 12-year-olds, with an intensity about him that came from having faced the end. "Dad, you saved my life," he said one evening when he was 13. We were eating dinner, spaghetti with meat sauce, cheap and filling, at our small kitchen table in the apartment we'd lived in for 8 years. "The doctors saved your life," I said automatically. "Dr. Summers, the nurses, the whole team. The doctors provided the treatment. You provided everything else. Mom and Uncle James thought I was going to die, so they decided it wasn't worth staying. You thought I was worth saving even if it cost everything. That's the difference. You've always been worth everything, Oliver. You always will be. I'm going to pay you back," he said with absolute certainty. "Every dollar you spent, every hour you worked, every sacrifice you made, I'm going to pay it all back. That's not how parent-child relationships work. It's exactly how ours works. We're partners, Dad. We're a team. You carried me for 10 years. Now I'm going to carry you." Oliver wasn't just smart, he was exceptionally brilliant. His IQ tested at 152. By 13, he was taking advanced placement courses in math and science. By 15, he'd skipped 2 grades and was being recruited by elite universities. By 16, he had full scholarships to MIT, Stanford, and Princeton for computer science and electrical engineering. "How did you get this good?" I asked when the MIT acceptance letter arrived. "I had time," Oliver said simply. "When you're sick for 5 years, you can't run around playing sports or hanging out with friends. You read, you learn, you study. I taught myself programming when I was 9 because it was something I could do from bed. By 11, I was building apps. By 13, I was doing contract programming work online. And I wanted to make sure that all the money you spent keeping me alive was worth it. Oliver, you were worth it from the moment you were born. You don't owe me anything. I owe you everything, and I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about money again." He went to MIT at 17, came home for every break, Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, summer, lived frugally on campus, worked part-time doing programming, sent money home to help with rent and expenses even though I told him not to. "Save it for yourself," I said when he sent the first check, $500. "I am saving it for myself. Helping you helps me. We're a team, remember?" He graduated from MIT in 3 years with dual degrees in computer science and business administration. 7 major tech companies recruited him with starting salaries ranging from $120,000 to $160,000. He turned them all down. "I'm starting my own company," he said. He was 20 years old, but carried himself like someone much older. Cancer and surviving it had stolen his childhood, but given him something else: focus, maturity, and an understanding that life was finite and needed to be used purposefully. "What kind of company?" "Software as a service. I've developed a proprietary algorithm for data encryption that's 60% faster and 40% more secure than anything currently available. I've got 4 venture capital firms interested in investing $8 million combined for 30% equity. I'm going to build something significant, Dad." "How significant?" "Significant enough that when Mom and Uncle James eventually hear about it, they'll understand exactly what they abandoned. Significant enough that you never have to work again unless you want to." That's when I realized Oliver hadn't just survived. He'd been planning for 10 years how to repay me, how to succeed, and how to make sure Catherine and James understood the magnitude of their mistake. Oliver's company was called Sentinel Data Systems. The name was intentional. Sentinels guard things, protect things, and Oliver's software protected data from cyber threats. Within 1 year, Sentinel had 75 employees and contracts with 6 Fortune 500 companies. Within 3 years, Sentinel had 300 employees and had developed 4 proprietary platforms that became industry standards. Within 5 years, Sentinel went public in an IPO that valued the company at $5.8 billion. Oliver owned 42% of the company post-IPO. That made him worth approximately $2.4 billion at age 25. The first thing he did after the IPO was buy me a house. Not a mansion, neither of us had any interest in ostentation, but a beautiful 4-bedroom house in a safe neighborhood with a yard, a 2-car garage, and a mortgage that Oliver paid in full. "I can't accept this," I said when he handed me the keys. "You already accepted it. The deed is in your name. The house is yours. This isn't negotiable." "Oliver, this is a $700,000 house. And you lived in an $1,100 a month apartment for 13 years because you spent every available dollar on my treatment. Now I'm spending my dollars on you. That's how this works. You can't spend $2 billion on me. I'm not spending $2 billion. I'm spending enough to make sure you're comfortable for the rest of your life. That's my right as your son and your partner." He also paid off every debt I'd accumulated. Medical bills I was still making payments on 13 years later. Credit card debt from Catherine's spending spree that had haunted me for over a decade. Everything. One day I had $112,000 in various debts. The next day, I had zero. "How does it feel?" Oliver asked me. "Like I can finally breathe after holding my breath for 13 years. "Good. Now you know how I felt when the cancer went into remission. That's what you gave me, Dad. Freedom. Now I'm giving it back to you." But Oliver wasn't finished, not even close. "I've been tracking Mom and Uncle James," he said one Sunday over dinner at my new house. He was 26 now, looked like a younger version of me before stress and betrayal had aged me prematurely. Tall, dark-haired, with Catherine's green eyes and my features. "Why would you track them?" "Because I wanted to know when they hit bottom. And according to my investigator, they just did." "Your investigator?" "Same guy you hired 13 years ago. Frank Morrison. I've been paying him for quarterly updates for the past 5 years." "Why?" "Because I wanted to know when they were desperate enough to come back. And they're desperate now. James filed for bankruptcy 11 months ago. Mom's working as a department manager at a mid-tier retail store. They're living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Phoenix, Arizona. They've got nothing left." "Good," I said, and I meant it completely. "It gets even better. They know about my company. They've been following the news. The IPO made national headlines. They know I'm worth approximately $2 billion, and according to my sources, they're planning to reach out." "Reach out? After 13 years?" "To reconnect, to apologize, to rebuild family relationships, and to see if maybe their son and brother, who they abandoned to die, might be willing to help them out of their financial difficulties now that he's so successful." My vision actually blurred with rage for a moment. "They abandoned us. They stole everything we had. They left you dying, and now they want to come back because we have money?" "Exactly. Poetic, isn't it? Tell them to go to hell." "I'm going to do something far better than that, Dad. I'm going to invite them back with open arms. I'm going to be gracious and forgiving. I'm going to offer them employment at my company. And then I'm going to systematically show them exactly what they threw away, exactly what their choices cost, and exactly how it feels to be powerless while someone else controls your entire future." I looked at my son and saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Calculated, patient rage. He'd been carrying this for 13 years, planning it, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash it. "Oliver, revenge isn't always..." "Isn't what? Healthy? Productive?" "Dad, you taught me something important during all those years. Actions have consequences. Mom and James stole from us, abandoned us, and then lived comfortably for 13 years on money meant to save my life. They used your savings to fund over a decade of vacations and luxury while we struggled. Now they're broke and desperate, and they think their biological relationship to us gives them a claim on what we built. I'm going to prove they're wrong." "How?" "You'll see." They'll be here within a month. I got an email from James 2 days ago. He said he'd been thinking about his little brother lately and wanted to reconnect. Said he'd heard about my success and was proud of me. Can you believe that? Proud. Like he had anything to do with any of this. What did you say? I said I'd love to see him and Mom. That we should definitely get together and catch up. I was warm, welcoming, forgiving. I played it absolutely perfectly. You're scaring me a little bit. Don't be scared, Dad. Be excited. This is going to be the most satisfying revenge you've ever witnessed, and I'm going to do it all without breaking a single law or violating a single ethical principle. Just good old-fashioned consequences. 3 weeks later, my phone rang. Unknown number from an Arizona area code. I almost didn't answer. Thomas, it's James, your brother. We really need to talk. James's voice sounded older, rougher around the edges, with the particular quality of desperation that comes from being broke in your mid-50s. I put him on speakerphone so I could record the conversation. Oliver had suggested I do this weeks ago in preparation. What do you want, James? I want to apologize. For everything. For leaving when you needed family most. For taking the money. For not being there when Oliver was sick. I was wrong, Thomas. I've been wrong for 13 years. Where's Catherine? She's here with me. We're still together. We want to see you and Oliver. We want to make things right. You can't make this right. We know that. But we're asking for a chance to try. We're asking for forgiveness. Thomas, we're family. That has to count for something. Family doesn't abandon dying children. Family doesn't steal. You and Catherine stopped being family 13 years ago when you walked out that door. I understand why you're angry. Do you? Do you really understand? Because I'm not sure you comprehend what you did. You stole $106,000 meant to save Oliver's life. You left when he was 7 years old, bald from chemotherapy, scared and in pain. You told me life was too short to deal with a nightmare situation. And then you used my money to live in Costa Rica for over a decade while I worked from midnight to dawn doing bookkeeping and sold everything I owned to keep him alive. I know we screwed up. Screwed up? That's what you call it? Screwing up is forgetting someone's birthday. What you did was calculated, premeditated betrayal. Thomas, please, just meet with us. One conversation. That's all we're asking. Why? So you can ask Oliver for money? So you can leverage your biological relationship to him into some kind of financial support now that he's successful? Silence on the other end. I'd hit the target. We're in a difficult situation financially, James finally admitted. I made some bad investments. We spent through our savings. You mean you spent through my savings, the money you stole. And we need help getting back on our feet. We thought maybe Oliver, since he's done so well despite you abandoning him to die? Since he built a $2 billion company while you were posting beach vacation photos? That kind of doing well? You've been tracking us? I hired an investigator 13 years ago. Found you in Costa Rica in 3 weeks. I know you lived there for 11 years. I know you burned through my money at $8,000 a month. I know exactly how you spent every dollar while Oliver and I struggled. Thomas, I'm sorry. We're both sorry. We were selfish and wrong, but we're family and we're asking for help. Here's what's going to happen, I said, following the script Oliver and I had prepared. Oliver wants to see you, both of you. He wants to hear your apologies in person. He's willing to meet with you tomorrow at his office at 10 in the morning. Don't be late. His office? Thomas, we don't have plane tickets. You're already here, aren't you, in town? You flew in yesterday hoping we'd agree to see you. Oliver had his assistant check with the airlines. You're staying at the Comfort Inn near the airport. More silence, caught in the lie. Yes, James finally said. We're here. We flew in 2 days ago. We'll be at Oliver's office at 10. Good. And James, don't try to manipulate him. Don't cry about how hard your life has been. Don't make excuses. Just be honest for once in your life about why you're really here. I hung up, and immediately called Oliver. "They're exactly as pathetic as we predicted," I said. "They flew in 2 days ago without even confirming we'd see them. That's how desperate they are." "Perfect," Oliver said. "Tomorrow at 10, everything changes for them. Make sure you're here, Dad. You deserve to watch this." I picked up James and Catherine from their hotel at 9:30 the next morning because Oliver wanted to control every aspect of their arrival. Neither of them had rental cars, too expensive, so they were dependent on me for transportation. That dependency was intentional. James looked terrible. He was 56 now, overweight, with gray hair and the worn, defeated expression of someone who'd spent years losing at life. Catherine was 50 and trying desperately to look 35. Blonde hair with obvious dye job to cover the gray, too much makeup, clothes that were trying too hard to be youthful. "Thomas," Catherine said when she saw me, tears already forming in her eyes. "It's so good to see you." "Get in the car," I said. "We're going to be late." The drive to Sentinel Data Systems headquarters was silent. I watched them in the rearview mirror, saw them looking at each other nervously, saw Catherine trying to hold James's hand and him pulling away slightly. Cracks in the relationship. Good. Sentinel's headquarters was a statement. 12 stories of glass and steel in a prime location, with the Sentinel logo, a stylized watchtower, prominent on the front of the building. The parking lot was full of expensive cars belonging to employees who were well compensated. Everything about the building screamed success. "Oliver built this?" James asked as we pulled into the visitor parking area. "Oliver built a company that's revolutionizing data security. This is just where the headquarters happens to be located." We took the elevator to the 12th floor, Oliver's executive floor. The doors opened onto a reception area that was all polished wood, glass, and expensive art. Oliver's executive assistant, a woman named Miranda, who I'd met many times, greeted us with professional courtesy. "Mr. Brennan, your family is here," she said into her phone. Then to us, "Mr. Brennan will see you now." James and Catherine looked nervous. Good. They should be nervous. Oliver's office was corner, windows on 2 sides, overlooking the city. The office itself was tastefully furnished but not ostentatious. Oliver had never been interested in showing off. He stood when we entered, and I watched Catherine's face as she saw her son for the first time in 13 years. He was tall, 6'2", had grown into his frame beautifully. He had my bone structure and Catherine's coloring, dark hair, green eyes, olive skin. He wore a suit that probably cost $3,000 but looked understated. He had the bearing of someone completely comfortable with authority. "Mom," Oliver said, his voice absolutely neutral. "Uncle James, it's been 13 years. Catherine rushed forward like she was going to hug him. Oliver stepped back and gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. "Please sit. We have business to discuss." They sat. I leaned against the wall near the door, positioned to watch everyone's faces. "I understand you're experiencing financial difficulties," Oliver said, his voice cool and businesslike. "Dad mentioned that you've expressed interest in reconnecting and possibly exploring employment opportunities." "Oliver, sweetie, I need to apologize first," Catherine started, the tears flowing now. "I was so wrong to leave. I was young and scared and overwhelmed." "You were 37, Oliver interrupted smoothly. "Same age Dad was. He was scared and overwhelmed too. He stayed. You left. Let's not rewrite history with convenient excuses." James tried to take over. "Oliver, we both know we made mistakes. Huge mistakes. We're not here to make excuses. We're here to apologize and to see if maybe you might have positions available at your company. I've got corporate experience, sales background." "You filed for bankruptcy 11 months ago," Oliver said, consulting a folder on his desk. "Before that, you worked for 3 different companies over 8 years, getting fired from 2 and laid off from 1. Before that, you were unemployed for 6 years living off money you stole from Dad. Before that, you worked in middle management making $53,000 a year. What about that resume suggests you're qualified for any position at a $5.8 billion technology company? James's face flushed red. I've had some setbacks. Setbacks. Fascinating word choice for abandoning your dying nephew and stealing his medical treatment fund to finance a 13-year vacation. The room was absolutely silent except for the quiet hum of the air conditioning. Catherine was crying harder now, but these were different tears. Scared tears. Panicked tears. However, Oliver continued, his voice never changing from that cool, professional tone, I do believe in providing opportunities for people to prove themselves. I'm going to offer both of you positions at Sentinel. Mom, I have an opening in our facilities management department. You'll be responsible for maintaining cleanliness and organization of office spaces, conference rooms, and restrooms. $17 per hour, full-time, 40 hours per week. Uncle James, I have an opening in our mailroom operations. You'll be responsible for sorting, distributing, and managing incoming and outgoing correspondence and packages. $17 per hour, full-time, 40 hours per week. Both positions include standard benefits, health insurance, dental, vision, and 401k matching after 1 year of employment. You can start Monday if you're interested. $17 an hour? James sputtered. That's barely above minimum wage. It's actually $2 above federal minimum wage and appropriate for the skill level and reliability your work histories demonstrate. Take it or leave it. I have a college degree, Catherine said, her voice shaking. I've managed retail operations. I've got 18 years of work experience. You've got 13 years of unemployment living on stolen money, followed by 5 years of spotty retail employment, where you were fired twice for inventory discrepancies and poor performance. This offer is extremely generous given that reality. This is humiliating, James said, standing up. You're deliberately humiliating us. You want to talk about humiliation? I said from my position by the door. Let me tell you about humiliation, James. Humiliation is watching your wife and brother walk out on your dying son. Humiliation is selling your house, your car, your wife's wedding rings to pay medical bills while the people who stole from you post vacation photos online. Humiliation is being told by your own parents to let your child die because saving him is too expensive. Humiliation is working midnight to dawn every single day for years while exhaustion makes you physically ill. That's humiliation. This is just appropriate consequences for choices you made. Thomas, please, Catherine begged. Talk to him. This isn't fair. It's completely fair. You want back in our lives? You work for it. You prove you're capable of commitment and follow-through. You show up every day, do your jobs, earn your paychecks, and maybe, after demonstrating sustained effort over years, we'll consider that you've begun to repay the debt you owe. I'll take the job, Catherine whispered. Uncle James? Oliver asked. James stood there, visibly struggling with rage and humiliation. But I could see the exact moment he realized he had no leverage, no options, no way out of this trap. Fine, he said. I'll take it. Excellent, Oliver said. Miranda will process your onboarding paperwork. You'll need to complete background checks, drug tests, and sign all standard employment agreements. Your start date is Monday at 7 a.m. Standard probationary period is 6 months, during which you can be terminated for any reason without cause. Performance reviews occur quarterly. Welcome to Sentinel Data Systems. They left the office in shell-shocked silence. I stayed behind with Oliver. That was brutal, I said. That was mercy, Oliver corrected. I could have said no and let them figure out their own situations. Instead, I'm giving them employment, income, benefits, and an opportunity to rebuild their lives. They should be grateful. They're not going to be grateful. They're going to be resentful. I know. And that's perfect. Because resentment means they'll stick around to see if they can somehow improve their situation or manipulate their way into something better. And while they're here, resenting me, I'm going to teach them exactly what Dad went through supporting me. I'm going to show them what it means to work when you're exhausted, to show up when you'd rather quit, to keep going when everything hurts. And they're going to do it while watching me run the company they could have been part of if they'd stayed. How long are you planning to do this? As long as it takes. 6 months, a year, 2 years. However long it takes for them to fully understand what they threw away and what it cost. And then what? Then we decide if they've earned forgiveness. But honestly, Dad, I don't think they're capable of what it would take to earn that. Some people just don't have it in them to truly change. I looked at my son, this man who'd survived cancer and built an empire and was now executing the most patient revenge I'd ever witnessed, and I felt something I rarely allowed myself to feel: pride mixed with concern. He was doing this for me, to repay me, to make them understand what they'd done to us. But I wondered if the cost of revenge might be higher than either of us anticipated. Catherine and James started work at Sentinel the following Monday. I didn't see them. I'd effectively retired when Oliver set up my retirement accounts, but Oliver sent me detailed updates throughout each week. Mom complained to her supervisor about the physical demands of the job, he texted on day 3. She's 49 years old and hasn't done manual labor in her life. Her feet hurt from standing all day. Her supervisor reminded her that the job description was clear about physical requirements. James asked if he could transfer to a different department after 2 weeks. He texted on day 11. HR told him he could certainly apply for internal transfers after completing his 6-month probationary period. He hasn't met the minimum qualifications for any other open positions. Mom tried to schedule lunch with me. He texted on day 17. She asked Miranda to block time on my calendar. Miranda informed her that I don't do social meals with facilities staff during work hours. Mom cried in the janitorial closet for 20 minutes, according to building security cameras. James called you last night, he texted on day 23. I know because my IT team monitors company phones and his personal phone pinged off our cell tower. What did he say? I called Oliver instead of texting back. He said this was cruel and vindictive, that you were punishing them way beyond what they deserved, that they'd made mistakes 13 years ago, but they'd paid for those mistakes by losing everything, and now you were just being sadistic. What did you tell him? I told him that they'd humiliated themselves 13 years ago when they chose theft and betrayal over family. I told him they were lucky you were giving them any opportunity at all. I told him if he didn't like working at Sentinel, he was welcome to quit and find employment elsewhere. Did he quit? No, because he knows that at 56, with bankruptcy on his record and spotty employment history, no one else will hire him at even $17 an hour. He's trapped, and he knows it. Good. That's exactly where I want him. Trapped, resentful, but unable to leave. The updates continued week after week. Catherine's back hurt from pushing cleaning carts. James's hands hurt from repetitive sorting motions. Both complained constantly about the early start time, the short breaks, the constant supervision, the lack of advancement opportunities. They were experiencing what millions of Americans experience every day, the grinding, exhausting reality of low-wage labor. The difference was they'd once had money, my money, and they'd spent it on luxury and comfort while I worked myself into illness, keeping Oliver alive. Month 2 brought a significant development. Catherine showed up at my house on a Sunday morning unannounced. She looked worse than when she'd started at Sentinel. Weight loss, stress lines around her eyes, her hands rough and red from cleaning chemicals. Thomas, I need to talk to you, she said. Please. You have 5 minutes. This is wrong. What Oliver's doing to us. We made mistakes, yes, but we don't deserve this level of punishment. We're being humiliated every single day. You stole $106,000 from me. You abandoned our dying son. You told me to my face that you weren't going to waste your life watching him die. You spent my money living in paradise for over a decade while I sold everything I owned and worked from midnight to dawn. And now you're upset that you have to clean offices for $17 an hour? We were in crisis mode when we left. I was in crisis mode too, Catherine. I was watching our son die. My crisis was worse than yours. You know what I did? I worked 3 jobs. I slept 4 hours a night for years. I went into debt that took over a decade to pay off. I made it work because that's what parents do. That's what adults do. You ran away. He's torturing us. He's employing you, giving you paychecks and benefits and a chance to rebuild. That's more than you gave us. We're family, Thomas. Doesn't that mean anything to you anymore? No. You stopped being family when you chose betrayal over loyalty. Now you're just people who happen to share some DNA with my son. That's the extent of our relationship. Catherine started crying, real, ugly crying, not the manipulative tears from before. I can't do this anymore. The work is too hard. I'm too old for this. My body can't handle it. But I can't quit, because I need the money. I need the insurance. I'm trapped. Yes, you're trapped by the consequences of your own choices. You trapped yourself 13 years ago when you stole from us and abandoned Oliver. This is just what that trap looks like now. You could tell Oliver to give us better positions. He'd listen to you. Why would I do that? You haven't earned better positions. You haven't demonstrated any value beyond basic labor. You show up late. You complain constantly. You do minimum acceptable work. Those aren't the characteristics of people who deserve advancement. Because we're family. No, Catherine, we're not. We stopped being family a long time ago. You made that choice. Now you live with it. She left still crying. I felt no sympathy. She'd had 13 years to feel regret. 13 years to try to make amends. 13 years to at least check if Oliver had survived. She'd done none of those things. She'd only come back when she was broke and desperate. That wasn't remorse. That was just regret that consequences had finally caught up with her. I called Oliver after she left. Catherine came to see me, begging me to talk you into giving them better jobs. What did you say? That they haven't earned better jobs. That showing up is the bare minimum, not something worthy of reward. Perfect. How did she look? Exhausted, defeated, like someone who's finally understanding that the world doesn't owe her anything. Good. That's the exact lesson she needs to learn. It took her 49 years and losing everything, but maybe she's finally learning it. Month 3 brought another confrontation. James showed up at Sentinel on a Saturday and somehow convinced security to let him up to Oliver's floor. Oliver had been there working. He often worked weekends, and James found him in his office. Oliver called me immediately and put his phone on speaker so I could hear. "This is insane, Oliver," James was saying, his voice tight with desperation and rage. "I'm your uncle. Catherine is your mother. We made mistakes 13 years ago, yes, but this is excessive punishment. You're destroying us." "I'm employing you," Oliver said calmly. "How is that destroying you? You're making us work minimum wage jobs when you're worth billions. You could give us real positions, real salaries, real opportunities to rebuild our lives." "Based on what qualifications, Uncle James? You have no relevant skills for this industry. You've demonstrated no commitment to anything in your entire adult life except finding easy paths and running when things get difficult. Why would I give you positions you haven't earned?" "Because we're family." "No, we were family. You ended that relationship when you abandoned me." "I didn't abandon you, You told my father that life was too short to be stuck in my nightmare situation. You took money that was meant to save my life and spent it on vacations. You posted photos of yourself enjoying beaches and restaurants while I was bald from chemotherapy. That's not making a mistake. That's calculated betrayal. What do you want from us?" James's voice cracked. "What will it take for you to forgive us and stop punishing us?" "I don't know if I'm capable of forgiving you, but I know that if forgiveness is possible, it comes after you've demonstrated genuine change and sustained effort, not just desperate compliance because you need a paycheck. Right now, you're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry that you're broke and working manual labor. That's not remorse. That's just regret that your choices had consequences." "I am sorry." "Then prove it. Work at Sentinel for a full year. Show up every day on time. Do your job without complaining. Don't ask for special treatment because you're my uncle. Don't expect promotions or raises you haven't earned through excellent performance. Just be a reliable, excellent employee for 12 consecutive months. If you can do that, maybe we'll talk about whether you've started to understand what you did to us. A year? I can't do this for a year. Then quit. No one's forcing you to stay. But if you quit, don't come back asking for anything ever again. This is the only opportunity you're going to get from me. I heard James leave without saying anything else. Oliver came back on the phone. Do you think he'll last a year? I asked. No, I think he'll quit within 4 months. James has never done anything difficult in his entire life. The moment he finds another option, any other option, he'll take it and tell himself he's better off. And Catherine? She'll stick it out longer because she's more desperate and has fewer options, but eventually she'll break too. They both will, and then they'll understand exactly what it means to give up. Oliver was right about James. James quit exactly 17 days later, at the end of month 3. He just stopped showing up. HR called him repeatedly. He didn't answer. Finally sent an email. This situation is untenable and I'm resigning effective immediately. Oliver forwarded me the email. Predictable. He lasted exactly 94 days. That's probably the longest he's committed to anything difficult in his adult life. What about Catherine? She's still here. Still complaining, still doing minimal work, but she's here. She needs the paycheck and the health insurance too badly to quit. Catherine lasted another 9 weeks after James quit, bringing her total time at Sentinel to 5 months and 3 weeks. She finally quit via email at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. I cannot continue in this position. My body cannot handle the physical demands, and I need to prioritize my health. I'm giving 2 weeks' notice as of this email. Oliver called me when he saw the email Monday morning. She's done. Made it almost 6 months, but couldn't quite get there. She's giving 2 weeks' notice, which means she hasn't found another job yet. She's just hoping 2 weeks is enough time to find something else before the paychecks stop. Will you hold her to the 2 weeks? No. I'll accept her resignation effective immediately and pay her for the 2 weeks. She's not worth the hassle of having her around spreading negativity for another 14 days. So that's it? They came back, worked a few months, quit, and now what? Now they go back to Arizona or wherever they end up, and they struggle with the same financial problems they had before, except now they can't tell themselves they might have access to my resources if they just asked nicely. They know for certain that there's no safety net here. They burned that bridge, and it's not getting rebuilt. I thought that was the end of it. Catherine and James had tried to infiltrate our lives, failed, and left. We'd made our point. They understood consequences, but the universe wasn't done with them yet. 8 months after Catherine and James quit Sentinel, I got a phone call from James. I almost didn't answer, but morbid curiosity won. Thomas, I need help, he said without preamble. Catherine has cancer, breast cancer, stage 3. We can't afford treatment. The irony was so profound it almost hurt. You're calling me about cancer treatment? I know how this sounds. Do you? Do you really comprehend how this sounds? Because I'm having difficulty believing you have any self-awareness at all if you think calling me about cancer treatment is going to end well. Thomas, please. She's dying. We don't have insurance anymore. We don't have savings. The treatments cost $35,000 per month. $106,000 would cover 3 months of treatment, I said quietly. Do you remember that number, James? 106,000? That's what you and Catherine stole from me while Oliver was dying of cancer. If you still had that money, you could pay for 3 months of her treatment right now. We spent that money years ago, on beach houses and surf lessons and expensive dinners while I sold my wife's wedding rings and worked midnight to dawn to save our son. You made a choice to steal money meant for a child's cancer treatment so you could live comfortably. Now Catherine is facing the same crisis you abandoned us in, and you want me to rescue you? She's your ex-wife, Oliver's mother. She stopped being his mother the day she told me she wasn't going to waste her life watching him die. She's a stranger who happens to share some genetic material with my son. That's the extent of our relationship. What about Oliver, then? He has money, billions of dollars. $35,000 a month is nothing to him. It was everything to me 13 years ago. And you know what Oliver said when I told him Catherine was sick? He said karma operates on a very precise mathematical basis. You stole $106,000 and spent 13 years living on it. Now you need approximately $120,000 for Catherine's treatment, and you have nothing. The numbers are almost poetic in their precision. So you're just going to let her die? I'm not doing anything to her. She created this situation through her own choices. I created my situation through my choices. The difference is, I can sleep at night. You're a cold bastard, Thomas. No, I'm just someone who learned that bailing people out of consequences they created doesn't help them grow. It just enables more bad behavior. Catherine needs to figure this out herself, the same way I figured out how to save Oliver when everyone told me to give up. I hung up, called Oliver. James called me too, Oliver said before I could speak, begging for money for Catherine's treatment. What did you tell him? That I'd be happy to hire her back at Sentinel so she could have access to the company health insurance plan, which would cover most of her cancer treatment. All she'd have to do is work full-time while undergoing treatment, the same way you worked full-time while I was undergoing treatment. That's brilliant and cruel. That's fair and equivalent. She wants my help. She can have it on the exact same terms you had to accept. Work through hell to get the resources you need. Did she take the offer? James said he'd talk to her about it. But honestly, Dad, I doubt she will. Catherine's entire problem is that she's never been willing to do hard things. She'll probably try to find charity care or go into massive medical debt rather than come back to Sentinel and face the reality of what she did. And you're okay with that? I'm completely okay with it. I offered help on fair terms. If she refuses those terms, that's her choice. I don't owe her unconditional rescue, especially after she refused me unconditional love when I needed it most. 3 weeks later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Catherine had qualified for Medicaid coverage in Arizona and was receiving treatment through a charity hospital program. She had a decent prognosis. Early stage 3 had good survival rates with aggressive treatment. She was going to survive, just like Oliver had survived. The difference was, Oliver had survived because I sacrificed everything to keep him alive. Catherine would survive because government programs and charity caught her when she fell. And she'd do it without our help, the same way we'd survived without hers. 5 years later, I'm 64 years old and sitting in the living room of the house Oliver bought me, watching my 2 grandchildren play on the floor. Oliver married a woman named Jennifer 3 years ago. She's a pediatric oncology nurse, which seems almost too perfect. They have 2 children, Thomas James, who's 2 years old and named after me, and Catherine Marie, who's 6 months old and named after Oliver's mother despite everything. I named her Catherine because I wanted to reclaim that name, Oliver explained when they told me. I wanted it to mean something good instead of something painful. Our Catherine will grow up knowing love and security, not abandonment. Oliver's company is now worth $12 billion. He's 33 years old, one of the youngest self-made billionaires in America, regularly profiled in business magazines and invited to speak at conferences. Through it all, he's remained grounded, remembering where he came from and what it took to get here. I get occasional updates about Catherine and James through social media and mutual acquaintances. They're still in Phoenix. Catherine survived her cancer, 5 years in remission now, and works part-time as a receptionist at a dental office. James works in building maintenance at an apartment complex. They live in a 1-bedroom apartment and struggle with bills. They're in their mid-50s with no retirement savings, no security, no prospects. They send Christmas cards every year. Generic cards with printed signatures, no personal notes. Oliver opens them, reads them, and throws them away without comment. Last year, Catherine sent a letter. 8 pages, handwritten, talking about regret and mistakes and how she thought about Oliver every day. How she was sorry for leaving, sorry for stealing, sorry for not being the mother he deserved. How she understood if he could never forgive her, but wanted him to know she'd changed. Oliver read it carefully, then filed it away in a drawer in his office. "Are you going to respond?" I asked. "I don't know yet. Part of me thinks she's genuine now. 13 years of struggle and a cancer diagnosis probably gave her real perspective. But another part of me wonders if she'd have written that letter if I was still poor and struggling. Would she have been sorry then? Or is she only sorry now because she sees what she missed out on? Does it matter? Maybe not. But I'm not ready to forgive her yet. Maybe someday. Maybe when I'm older and she's gone and I want to make peace with it for my own sake. But right now, I don't feel like I owe her forgiveness. She did what she did. I survived anyway. I built something she can't touch. That's victory enough." Last month, I got an unexpected call. My mother. I hadn't spoken to either of my parents in over 13 years. "Thomas, your father passed away," she said. No greeting, no small talk. "Heart attack. He's gone." "I'm sorry for your loss," I said, meaning it. Despite everything, he'd been her husband. "The funeral is Saturday. Will you come?" "I don't think so, Mom." "He's your father. He was my father. He stopped being a father when he told me to let Oliver die because saving him was too expensive. You both did. We were trying to be realistic about your situation. You were trying to convince me to give up on my son because it was inconvenient and costly to save him. You made your choice then. I made mine. Oliver and I built a life without you, and it's too late to pretend we're family now. Thomas, please, I'm alone now. Your father is gone. I have no one. You have your choices and their consequences. That's what you told me I'd have when you suggested I put Oliver in hospice. Well, those consequences include dying alone because you couldn't be bothered to support your son when he needed you most. I hung up. Oliver called me 20 minutes later. Grandma called me, he said. Told me about Grandpa dying and asked if we could reconcile before she dies too. What did you say? I told her I'd be happy to pay for a nice nursing home when she needs one, but I wasn't interested in a relationship with someone who told my father to let me die. I can be generous with money. I can't be generous with emotional availability to people who fundamentally don't deserve it. You're more forgiving than I am. I'm practical. Paying for her end-of-life care costs me nothing meaningful and prevents me from feeling guilty later. But letting her back into our lives emotionally would cost us peace. That's not a trade I'm willing to make. I think about that conversation now, watching my grandchildren play, and I realize Oliver learned something profound through his cancer and our struggles, the difference between obligatory generosity and earned intimacy. He can be professionally kind to Catherine, James, and my mother because it costs him nothing meaningful. But he reserves real love, real connection, real trust for people who've proven they deserve it. That's the legacy of abandonment, not bitterness, but discernment, not revenge, but boundaries, not cruelty, but clarity about who deserves access to your life. 6 months ago, something unexpected happened. I got an email from James. The subject line was, "No excuses, just truth." The email said, "Thomas, I'm not asking for anything. I'm not making excuses. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything. We made terrible choices. We hurt you and Oliver in ways that can't be repaired. We stole from you and abandoned you when you needed family most. Catherine and I have spent 13 years dealing with the consequences of those choices, and we deserve every bit of suffering we've experienced. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that we finally understand what we did. I'm sorry. Not sorry we got caught or sorry things didn't work out for us, but genuinely sorry for the pain we caused. That's all. You don't need to respond. I just needed to say it." I showed the email to Oliver. He read it carefully. "Do you think he means it?" I asked. "Probably. Desperation has a way of bringing clarity. He's 57 now. Broke. working manual labor, watching his friends retire while he can't even afford vacations. That kind of life makes you reflect on the choices that brought you there. Are you going to respond? No. Responding implies the conversation is ongoing. I want the conversation to be finished. He said what he needed to say. I read it. That's sufficient. You're harder than I am. I learned from the best. You taught me that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let people face their consequences without interference. You gave me that gift when I was fighting cancer. You didn't lie to me about how bad things were. You didn't pretend everything would be okay. You just told me the truth and let me decide how to respond. I'm giving James and Catherine the same gift now. The truth is, they destroyed their relationship with us. I'm not going to lie and pretend it can be repaired, but I'm also not going to keep punishing them. I'm just letting them live with what they created. 2 months ago, Catherine called me. First time I'd heard her voice in over 4 years. Thomas, I'm not calling to ask for anything, she said. I just wanted to tell you that I'm proud of Oliver and proud of you. You raised an extraordinary man despite having no help, no support, and every reason to give up. That's remarkable. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to know that I understand now what I threw away. Not the money or the comfort, but the chance to be part of something real. The chance to watch Oliver grow up. The chance to support you while you fought for him. I chose ease over love, and I lost everything that mattered. I know I can't get it back. I'm not asking to. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. Okay, I said. Thank you for saying that. Can I ask one thing? Not for me, for Oliver. Will you tell him that his mother is proud of him? Even if he doesn't care, even if it means nothing to him, will you tell him? I'll tell him. I hung up and called Oliver immediately, relayed the entire conversation. She says she's proud of you, I finished. That's nice, Oliver said, his voice completely neutral. Meaningless, but nice. Does it really mean nothing to you? Dad, let me ask you something. If Catherine had stayed and supported us through my cancer, and then 13 years later called to say she was proud of me, would that mean something? Of course. But she didn't stay. She left. So her pride now is based on reading about my success from a distance, not on actually being part of my life. That's not real pride. That's just acknowledgement of something she observed, like saying, I'm proud that the sun rose this morning. It doesn't mean anything because she didn't contribute to it. I suppose that's true. She's proud of the idea of me, the successful son she could have had if she'd stayed, but she's not proud of the actual me, because she doesn't know the actual me. She doesn't know that I'm terrified of hospitals despite running a successful company. She doesn't know that I still have nightmares about chemotherapy. She doesn't know that every business decision I make is filtered through the lens of, would this make Dad proud? She doesn't know any of that because she chose not to be here for it. So her pride means nothing. He was right. Catherine was proud of a stranger who happened to share her DNA and her last name, not proud of the son she'd abandoned. There's a difference. But I'll tell you what does mean something, Oliver continued. You being proud of me. That means everything because you earned the right to be proud. You were there for every step, every struggle, every victory, every moment of doubt. Your pride is real because it's based on actual knowledge and actual love. Hers is just words. That conversation crystallized something for me. The people who abandon you lose the right to claim your victories. Catherine and James left when things were hard. They don't get to celebrate now that things are easy. That privilege belongs to the people who stayed. Yesterday was Oliver's 34th birthday. At his party, after everyone left, he pulled me aside and handed me a deed to the apartment building where we'd lived for 13 years after Catherine left. You bought our old building? I asked. I bought it 3 years ago, renovated it. It's now yours. You spent 13 years sacrificing everything. Now you control it, sell it, keep it. Turn it into affordable housing, whatever you want. I wanted it perfect, something to be proud of, proof we survived and won. I hugged him, overwhelmed with gratitude. Later, on his back porch, we talked about Catherine and James. They came back expecting easy access to our success. They chose to quit. That tells me all I need to know, Oliver said. I've moved past anger into indifference, I replied. They live with their choices. We live surrounded by family, success, and love. That's the best revenge, not making them suffer but making them irrelevant. Oliver nodded. They wrote themselves out of our story. We became happy without them. That's real victory. We sat in silence thinking of our journey, from betrayal and loss to peace and fulfillment. Catherine and James live with regret. We live fully. Thank you, Dad, Oliver said, for never giving up on me, for showing me what real love looks like. You made it worthwhile, son. Every sacrifice, every doubt, it all means something. We survived together. The hard path led us to wealth, family, and peace. The easy path led them to regret. That's justice.